I will introduce myself briefly. My name is Pavel Kravchenko. I'm the co-founder of Distributed Lab. And together with InnoHub, we are doing a series of webinars with very smart people about very interesting topics. Because we believe that's like we need to give people access to very good source of information, objective from different angles, and that's why we committed to doing it. We ourselves are a blockchain research and development center. We've been doing this for many years. We employ cryptographers and computer science experts, and we are very interested in digital transformation because that's our primary business. We do this through integration and development of systems that employ cryptography to protect information or to provide new ways of managing assets or to provide new ways of interaction between people. And that will be the topic of our webinar, the digital transformation. So I will briefly introduce Abdul. We haven't met in person, even though I was once in Qatar, but yeah, that time we haven't spoke. But we talked a few times, and I realized that Abdul possesses very interesting knowledge, like 30 years of experience of digital transformation. He has been doing it before it was called digital transformation, actually. So that's kind of very cool. And he's working on a very interesting contracts. I'm not sure he will be able to disclose them, but anyway, he's on the top of many quite good things. So Abdul, I leave the rest of introduction to you because you will do it better.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pavel. I'm really honored to be with you today, all of you. Thank you for your time, and I hope that this session will add a lot of insights to you in this interesting field of digital, the digital economy in general, and digital transformation. This is what it's called today, and we will identify it, we will explain it in a while, because there's a lot of confusion on this term. Many people from different perspectives, they have different meanings and interpretations to it. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoy this session. And if you have any questions after this session, feel free to share with the moderator, and we will be able to answer them back on one-to-one basis. So, Pavel, are you still with us, or you?
Yeah, sure. I just
switched
off video.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to explain a little bit what you've been doing for all these years and what kind of tasks you've been solved, and maybe just a couple of minutes of your own personal introduction.
Yeah. So I have been working in Qatar since 1993, so almost 27 years. And I came here to Qatar. I'm working as part of a group called MIDIS Group, and the entity in Qatar, it's called ICT, Information and Communication Technology. So we are mainly into systems integration. We integrate data center solutions from networking, hardware, software, cybersecurity, to provide the customers, the businesses, business infrastructure for their business. So with time, as you all know, the technology has undergone a lot of evolutions and enhancements till it has 5 years, in 2014 actually, 6 years now, we started to hear about the word digital transformation. So ICT, as one of those key systems integrators in Qatar and part of the MIDIS group, have decided to embrace and to invest in this space. And it's a deep belief that this is going to be strategic moving forward. And that will create two things, opportunities for all kinds of business sectors, as well as threats, as we have been seeing all the time. So I personally have undergone an extensive education in this space from technology as well as business to understand and to be able to articulate the technology with the business and so on and so forth. So we are today engaged in Qatar with a lot of organizations in different sectors on different initiatives. We are also part of a big government initiative for smart government, for smart infrastructure, smart digital infrastructure for the government of Qatar. And we have other initiatives in different and other sectors. So I would like to start saying that although it's called digital transformation, the word digital, if you allow me, Pavel, do you want me to elaborate more
actually,
on the introduction? Or?
That would be my first question. How would you define digital transformation, and how do you like explain to people, because it's a kind of vague word? So
yes,
please go on.
So as the words, let me say literally, let's define it now. Digital is technology and transformation is people and process. So digital transformation is actually a combination of things. It has been perceived by many people in the field that this is a technology initiative. It is driven by technology, by the modern digital technologies such as artificial intelligence, which they are not new, but they have undergone a lot of maturity till they became compelling and they are ready to provide, we are ready to build on them. Artificial intelligence, big data analytics, blockchain or distributed ledger technologies, augmented reality, IoT, and so on, cloud. So I would like to define digital business transformation. I would like to add the word business because the objective of this is all about business. So I would like to say that digital business transformation is a way to create new business models that will help the organizations in each industry to stay in business, to capture customers, new customers, to keep satisfying their existing customers, and to mitigate the risk of digital disruption. In shorter explanation, it's new business models. It's a creation of a new business model that never existed completely. So the scientists defined transformation versus change the way as follows. So they said change can change a caterpillar from a small caterpillar to a bigger or faster caterpillar. But transformation can change a caterpillar to a butterfly. So we are talking here in business transformation. It means we will create new business models that never existed before that are needed in the new economy. We call it digital economy. So that's, if you like, a brief explanation of how it is.
Before we move forward, my question is how to, like, we still have many business models that are like old as world, and they also need to become digital, like e-commerce or something like that. They technically don't change the business model. They change the way of providing the service. How would you comment on that?
Okay, this is bringing us to the difference between digitization and digitalization. Digitization is what you are talking about, is to make things paperless, automatic, enhanced. This is a digitization. To make things digital, from analog to digital, is called digitization. But digitalization, which is digital transformation, is actually meant mainly with business process. So let me give you an example just to elaborate, and that will, I think, everybody will be able to understand it well. Classically, I know that everybody gives the Uber example of a digital transformation, but I will use the same example, but in a different way. So taxi business used to be there for years, and many people knew it in a way that you either call a taxi or wait in the street to find a car and then tell him where you want to go and he takes you there. Uber, and by the way, Uber is a technology company. It's not a transportation company. It's called Uber Technologies. So Uber thought of a new model to transform the transportation or the taxi business specifically from the way it was run to a totally new model. So in order to look at a business model, new business model, you have to consider multiple factors, not just the technology factors. Technology is one factor and could be the important factor and a foundational factor, but that's not the only factor to create a new business model. So what they did, they looked at the customer. They started from the customer. What would today's customer who takes taxi need? So they found out that the customer needs to be transported from point A to point B, anywhere, anytime, and he wants to have a common user experience. So if I'm using Uber in Qatar or using it in the US or anywhere, I use the same platform, the same application, the same model, the same expectations, the same user experience. And I want to be private. I need to maintain my privacy. I need to be to have a competitive billing or charge, and I need to be able to interact socially. I want to chat with the driver. I want to collect points for loyalty points. I want to be able to track and see where is this driver, and I want to be able to account him or her, the driver, for the service, whether it's good or bad. So, and not only that, and I want to make sure that I will not cost the environment additional cost, meaning I don't want to add new cars on the road and I want to increase the CO2 emissions. I want to keep friendly with the environment. I want to stay environment friendly. I want to be without liability, without owning the assets of the cars and without hiring the drivers. Many people had cars on the streets. They have multiple seats empty. They go from one place to another. So they want you to monetize that unused space of your car or unused time of the car when you are free. So that model was created taking into consideration political considerations, legal considerations, governance. They took into consideration environmental considerations, as I mentioned, and they took into consideration technology considerations. And technology, if you look today, Uber worth millions of dollars or billions of dollars, not because they have a nice mobile application and they do booking. No, because they have come up with a new business model for a taxi service. So this is an example of a new business model rather than using the old business model. In order to design a new business model, you need to free yourself from the legacy and from the traditional thinking. You might use traditional thinking, but it doesn't have to be based on traditional thinking. So you have to be very, very liberal in the way you think and to try to understand who is the end user, who is the customer, what is my objective, and to be able to run in the business economy, I need not only to meet the customer expectations, but also exceed and keep exceeding. And as you can see today, Uber, again, to the same example, is coming up with, continuously is coming up with services, new services, which has created a brand today, Uber. When I say Uber, you imagine a car. So, or transportation. So Uber airplanes today, Uber Eat, Uber cars, and so on and so on. So this is, if you like, how to differentiate between digitization and digitalization.
Okay, and by the way, regarding Uber, yeah, you you gave very deep explanation, and I honestly haven't thought about all of these components. My understanding of their innovation was that they introduced a reputation for the buyer and for the seller, so for the driver and for the rider. And this ability gives some kind of an assurance when you jump into somebody's car. You haven't met and there is no license, and so, and surprisingly, the quality of Uber cars and drivers is higher than the traditional taxis in most countries. Maybe in Germany it's a little bit different, but they prohibited Uber in many cities. But yeah, that was a very interesting outcome. And by the way, this new business model, do you think there is a framework that can outline what old businesses can do? So obviously we still have many normal businesses, and what is there any like guidelines what can think about to like open their minds and come up with something new?
Of course, I mean that's the purpose of why we are here, is to show everybody on okay, we now understand there's a need to come up with a new business model. How can we do that? And how can we make sure that what we are thinking is correct for the business? Well, there is an underestimated factor that many organizations missed to invest in the past, because most of their success was based on their best practices and on the, if you like, the status quo of their growth over the years. So from 1950 till now, you can see that businesses have grown in a modest way, and there's no major change in the way they do business till maybe the internet came up in the year 2000 practically, and people started to trade on the internet, and the model has changed. So in order to put a framework, there is an immediate need. First, if you want to follow with the steps, one is to the CXOs, which is the leadership team of the organizations. They should first understand and create a common understanding about the opportunities of the digital economy, and identify the threats if they don't do anything, and start building a digital business strategy as part of their business strategy. Normally, for example, marketing is built as an add-on to a business strategy. So the leadership team in an organization, they create a business strategy, then they call the marketing manager to do marketing activities to support that business strategy. In digital, it doesn't work this way. Digital business strategy is in the DNA of the business. It has to be in the core of the thinking. The thought process has to be digital. So once we can, and this is an education that all the CXOs has to undergo in order to make sure, a part of the the ego and the past history, and because the organization might be very successful today, and they may not tolerate that you tell them, look, you need to rethink of the way you do business. They will tell you what to rethink. We have been successful since 1880 till now, and we are the biggest and greatest, and there's no need. Well, there is a need. So when they are open to when they have an appetite to understand that there is a change in the economy, and that change is fundamental, that's why they call it disruptive, okay? Then they will start building what's required for a successful transformation. Now, what is required for a successful transformation? Now, first, as I said, leadership. It requires a strong leadership from any organization to be able to transform the company. Or you don't have necessarily to transform the whole company, but you can transform or create new services or processes. So this is one, leadership. Second, then they have to invest in innovation. Innovation is a notion of humans. Machines and technologies and money cannot make innovation. People can make innovation. Innovation and design thinking is a subject that has not been addressed enough in the past, but now because we are in a disruptive stage of the economy, it becomes very crucial to realize the importance of innovation. So many organizations, I've seen some organizations here, even in Qatar, they have a department called Innovation Center or Head of Innovation or the Center of Excellence, they call it. So this is very important because you need to identify within the organization who are the people who are champions or potential champions to drive this thought, this new modern thought within the organization. You can hire those people, but preferably it has to be mainly from the existing people. So this is the second one. So innovation is the second point after leadership. Then you can start identifying your risks, business risks of this type of new service, because as you know, any new service may involve a noise about your brand or your message to the customers or to the market. For example, if you take an example, if you are talking about a bank and the bank decided to discuss digital banking initiatives, digital, the real digital, not digitization, the digitalization, new services. And this may be interpreted by the customers that this bank is not knowing what he wants, or he's trying to confuse us. He wants us to do this service like this or like this. So there's a brand or intangible risk that need to be addressed as part of the process. So this innovation team will create a kind of a committee or a steering committee or whatever you call it. And then those people will have to undergo a framework. We in ICT, we have a framework called Thrive. This framework was not done by us. It was done by a guy called W.L.L. So it's called Thrive. Thrive is T for technology, H for holistic, R for realization of value or response to the demands of the market, I innovation, V value realization, and E is an enterprise structure. So this is a framework of how to look at transformation. And then this team, once they identify the business risks and the objectives of the current state and the future state that they want to be in, and who's your customer, are you going to maintain your customer or you want to acquire new customers? What is the priority here? And what are the best case scenarios? Where are the worst case scenarios? What if things go wrong? How bad they can go and how good they can go? And then you build a roadmap with a gradual implementation with a value realization. When I say value realization, it means to make sure that the objectives of a specific innovation has been really achieved, measured and achieved, so that you can move on with more services and processes within the organization.
Okay, I have like many comments to that and some questions. And first of all, I would like to comment on your first thesis, like internet has changed how businesses started to grow. So they indeed started to grow differently. And one of the reasons I believe is that the cost of communication became effectively like zero. So it used to be that you had to like ride a horse for a day to convey a message to somebody or to send a bird. And it also bird could whatever, just die when it flies. And now when it's zero, it's not like even pennies like with traditional mail. Now when it's zero, you eliminate certain force that prevented communication. It's like assuming that you remove the friction force or resistance for electrons and now they can move like easily. And indeed now some things don't affect your business. So like these expenses. And obviously it creates new opportunities. And all businesses that relied on data transmission, some went out of business, some like just transformed or changed. And now I'm pretty sure we'll see a lot of transformation as soon as moving value will cost zero. And then, yeah, the many financial businesses will be like obsolete because that's kind of changes the the business model. So I would like you maybe to comment on that and look a little bit in the future. What else will become like?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to keep a small subject related to what you mentioned at the end called minds and machines. Minds and machines is actually the rebalancing of the role of humans versus the role of the technology. But since you mentioned this now, I would a little bit shed light on what's going on. Earlier, we used to hear of Moore's law. You know Moore's law, that you can get every 18 months, you will get double the speed at the same price of a computing speed, right? So in digital, there's call it a new law that's not anymore Moore, but a new law that things are changing very, very fast, not even 18 months. So the communication that you mentioned, the cost of communication and even the maturity of the communication system was developed as a result of the demand that the internet created. So we used to see in organizations earlier a telecom department and an IT department, and later on they converged together and they became one department because telecom became IT. So these lines became MPLS lines and the telephones became IP telephony and etc. So that was not a transformation. That was an evolution, actually. Today, for example, the 5G in the telecom is created as a result of the demand of the IoT. Right? The IoT is the main driver behind behind 5G, because you need to have sensors everywhere in a broadband infrastructure that can allow the communication of millions and billions of devices to each other or to their central systems. So there was a need for a high bandwidth broadband infrastructure. Then the 5G came up. Of course, there will be probably 6G and 7G in the future, or maybe satellite, which was a project long time ago by Google that they want to do free of charge service for the whole world as a satellite chain. In all cases, so yes, there are a lot of technology enhancements that are necessary to drive the business. At the end of the day, our objective is the business, not the technology. The technology is there to support the business till it became the business itself. Today, IT is a business itself. So you can, for example, if you have a platform, an e-commerce platform, and this is a technology platform, but this platform can give you money when you are sleeping at home, and it works everywhere 24 hours and at no cost. The beauty of the digital platforms, for example, is that any number of transactions that it can process, it's at zero. So if you do one, say, insurance policy, to create another insurance policy, the cost, the operating cost of doing another one is nothing, is negligible, almost zero. And it will be exactly the same copy with the same, perfect and instant. So this is the beauty of the digital platform. Going back to your point on how the internet changed the way we work, I was lucky probably to live between the two periods, before the internet and after the internet. And when the internet came, there were a lot of noise and comments about this is hype, this is not possible, how people will be able to do this, etc. And I started to hear .com or .gone. So either you become online on the web, or you will not be there. And that's a reality, happened to be, that any organization today, they have a kind of digital presence. Either it's a static website or a dynamic website or an e-commerce platform or so and so. So that has changed the way people used to trade. So e-commerce itself is a kind of transformation from a traditional hand or written model, but it did not create totally new processes. It didn't. You used to do bookkeeping manually, now you do it digitally. but that's not a transformation. That's an enhancement. This is a change. This is an evolution, not a revolution. Digital transformation is a kind of revolution. It's actually both, but more of a revolution than an evolution. So I hope I answered you on your question.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Now I have a few comments regarding the model that you've provided, these 3 steps: leadership, innovation, and the Thrive model. So first of all, and how these leaders are going to educate themselves, because that's kind of, you cannot go to university and just learn, digital transformation. And regarding innovation, it seems like, many organizations have these departments, but in many cases, unfortunately, just like, it's really like, it's not the soul of digital transformation. It's just a position, and person says, "Oh, I am cool. I'm like whatever, innovator," and then innovation and basically dies there. So it's not, or just when the innovation leader is coming to CFO and asks for a budget for some innovation, the CFO says, no, this year we don't have money for innovation. So it's still like innovation is something like rather like an addition to a core business. It's not embedded into it. It's more like, okay, it's a cool thing, nice to have. It's like a cool office. And I would rather say that innovation should be the part of the process of every like employee, and like with the guidelines, what it means to innovate. It's like, I've got a PhD degree in cryptography, and I believe that's the most important knowledge that I've got was not about cryptography. It was about philosophy of the scientific approach. How do you like do the guess? How do you verify the guess? How you compare like things? So you have a process how to invent things, and it's like scientists invented the process of invention. And maybe innovators should also like provide like a guidebook what it means to be like innovative. And then we won't have a professions anymore that say, oh, you are innovator, you are doing innovation, you are not.
Look, the key to innovation is passion. Okay, so you cannot have somebody to innovate if he doesn't have the passion. That's why I said the first step is leadership, not innovation. The leadership means they have to acknowledge the importance of the digital economy and the risks of not doing anything. Once that knowledge is acknowledged, and I will tell you how to make them acknowledge that, okay, then identifying the champions of such innovation can become in a logical step afterwards. It's not an easy thing, but here it takes us to the importance of humans versus the machines. So we let the human do what he's good in doing, which is innovation and creativity, and we let the computer and the machine and the technology do what it's good in doing, which is repetitive execution of certain tasks in a fast and accurate way. So anything that requires repetition and speed and quality, we can give it to the technology, like robots in a car manufacturing or something. And anything that requires creativity has to be given to the humans. Now, unfortunately, passion and innovation is not a component in every person to a certain level. So that need to be developed. There is an innovation training. There is a science behind how to let people follow certain mechanism in order to innovate, instead of in order not to get into a chaos of ideas and methods that will not be proven to be careful. So there are methods. I have personally attended a course in MIT in Boston last summer. It's called Mastering Innovation and Design Thinking. And there is a framework on how to innovate and how to design a service or a product, taking into considerations elements like empathy, like social considerations, how to sustain. For example, I gave you the example of Uber. When Uber created this model, I'm sure that other companies have imitated this model, like Lyft and Careem and other people. But the brand and the value for Uber was maintained. Why? Because Uber owns to the world the value of creating the model. So he still have the upper hand. And that takes us later on, I don't want to change the sequence of thought, but that will take us to how to compete in the digital economy, not only to exist, not only to play in the digital economy. It's important. Now we want to learn how to go to the digital economy and become a digital organization. But after that, there is even a more important and more significant thing is how to compete in the digital economy, because the rules of the game and the rules of competition in the digital economy are totally different than those of the traditional economy. But innovation, as I said, is definitely the key to success, because you cannot come up with ideas, business models that are. Now, by the way, there's another point that you need to leverage on: the crowdsourcing. The crowdsourcing means you buy or you get a value from the crowd, from everybody. So there is an example, if the time allows, to give you about crowdsourcing, how it has helped people to innovate. There is a medical company in the US who were doing genome sequencing. The genome sequencing, as you may know, it's a very tough and intensive process to come up with to sequence a genome. So it was taking, for example, for one genome, like 10 hours. All the numbers that I'm giving are just for indication only. So they have collaborated with their competitors who do the same thing, but in different ways, and came up with a unified method of enhancing the way they sequence the genome. And they managed to enhance this from 7 hours to 3 hours. Then they took it further and they asked the contribution of the crowd. They made it in a way of a competition, that we have this specific problem, how can you help us enhance it? And the surprise was that it was reduced from 3 hours to 1.5 hours, which is again half of the original time taken. So that is a value of the digital economy that need to be leveraged as part of the innovation also. So you can also buy innovation, you can source innovation. Who said today, for example, any organization, if they want to come up with a new service, who will make a decision about that? How it works today? They come up with the CXOs and the line of business managers. They get into a meeting and they say, look, we want to enhance the number of, we want to reduce the number of lost customers, for example. And they try to assess this in their classical methods, and they will come up with an idea or a decision which will be endorsed by the management, and they do it. But who said that those people have the ultimate knowledge about what the customer wants and how successful is this? In many cases, it could be partially true. In order for any organization in the digital economy to be able to effectively become digital, it has to believe in crowdsourcing and crowd innovation, let me say, and create some kind of competitions for people to come up with ideas. I've seen an insurance company who created such a competition, and the winner of the best idea was a shareholder of that idea, of the income, and he got interest, or he got part of the revenue or profit that was received to that insurance company as a result of that idea for 3 years. They gave it a time, because after 3 years it doesn't become innovative. So that is the cost of innovation.
Okay. This is interesting. Do you see the so the first boundary was to come out of this small circle of like founders and let managers to participate in idea creation. And now we involve even customers in idea creation and digital transformation. Do you think that maybe devices will participate in this somehow?
Mm-hmm. Okay, good question. So in order for an organization to make data-driven decisions rather than subjective decisions that could be, have a higher percentage of being wrong, today technology can provide some kind of tools to do kind of predictive analysis and you know, artificial intelligence today can be leveraged to do multiple levels of intelligence. Discovery or descriptive analysis, which is explaining how it is like dashboards and to describe what's going on. Then you have the predictive analysis. Then you have the cognitive analysis, which is the last level. There are 5 levels, but the last level is cognitive. And the cognitive level, you can make autonomous decisions. You can make your organizations, your technology infrastructure and business process together. They can make automatic decisions to the interest of that organization. If you know about Industry 4.0 in the manufacturing and operations, Industry 4.0 is a framework of how to let the manufacturing integrate their business strategy with market strategy, with the supply chain, with the production, with the after support, after sales services, and so on. So you have like a 360 degree, but intelligently integrated, and they automatically scale and expand and reduce based on the interest of the organization, which you define at the beginning, whether it's a cost optimization or time or quality or whatever. So yes, in order to get out of this circle, education at the first place is the first step for the CXOs and the sense of responsibility and to put down, you know, the ego and be humble to accept that technology can be a very good, helpful tool to them and could be a very harmful reason for them to get out of business. So that is a fundamental acknowledgement that any organization in any industry has to understand and to realize that there is a fact. Today, for example, in COVID-19, we saw a lot of companies, a lot across the globe, pushed to believe more in digital technologies than before COVID. Education started to boost their online education methods, meetings and travel, because travel is not possible. People started to do, we are now doing this, versus doing a seminar in a conference, in a physical conference. So I think after Corona, many people who use digital tools will continue to use them after the Corona because they found them valuable. I don't want to make it very long to you, but I'll give you a small example that will also make the idea clear. And I will ask you, Pavel, do you think would any 2 people dispute the fact that healthy food and sports are good for humans?
No.
Everybody does that. Is everybody eating healthy food and doing sports? No.
No.
So it's not a matter of only understanding and acknowledging. We all acknowledge that healthy food and sports is good, but we don't do it. Why? Because we are still in the comfort zone. What makes you buy the treadmill and put it at home? The blood test and the medical report. When you have a risk of life, you start considering measures and then you start taking care of your health. So businesses, unfortunately, some of them who are not creative enough or are passionate enough, or they have a big ego, okay, they are still to a certain extent in the comfort zone. When they start seeing their business is being disrupted and new startups, digital startups, today are able to provide their services or even better in a much lighter operating model, okay, and they are taking their customers while they are sleeping, then they will start saying, IT, CIO, CTO, COO, come, we want to find a solution. That will be late. I promise you, it will be late. So we are telling the customers today, every customer, take this seriously, capitalize on it, bet on it, invest in it. And I have another advice for big companies who are very, their disruption risk is very high. Take a bank, a leading bank or leading manufacturing factory or leading oil and gas or whatever. I would suggest for those people, if you are not sure or if you are ready to transform your current company, you use your money and create another digital born digital startup and let it do the services that you dream to do in the classical company. And you will see with time that this business will be cannibalized, meaning the digital business will grow and the traditional business will go down. And this way you sustain your presence in the digital economy and you keep your company brand moving forward. But not doing anything is the disaster.
Yeah, Abdul, I think I agree with you. I found the biggest complexity in convincing customers is that you still don't have very precise like actions or things to do within the company. So when you come and say, oh, it starts from the leadership and innovation and then some thought model, for them it's like philosophy. And for most people, philosophy is like, you need to make money today. And other industries, like let's say the cloud computing or virtualization, they basically provided a very simple example. They say, look, here's your IT department. It consumes this amount of money every month. These are like Bunky servers. And now you move these servers to our like cloud storage and we make it cheaper and faster and something like that. And this virtualization, they just say, okay, you had one computer, you could run only one operational system. And now you can run like 10 on it. So there was something like that you could display. And with digital transformation, it's a little bit like, again, like become healthy. Like it's many actions and steps, and for each person, they are different, obviously. So don't you think that it's slowing down the transformation among many businesses?
Yeah, you are very, very true. What you said is very true and very accurate. And to take the people, to move people from the comfort zone because they don't have a tangible and defined prescription on how things will be done, because this is how they used to think. Earlier, they used to be definite about their actions. That's why they used to do them. And because they're not thinking in a new, modern, digital way, that digital thinking is innovative and a little bit, out of norm thinking. So because they are still measuring the future with the tools of the present, that is the problem. Now, if we look at the Fortune 1000 companies, and everybody listens to this, if we look at the Fortune 1000 companies, Fortune 1000 are the top 1000 companies in the world. 10 years ago and Fortune 1000 today, how many of those companies are still in the Fortune 1000? How many of the Fortune 1000 list companies are still in the Fortune 1000 today, from 10 years till now?
Maybe 20%.
40.
40, okay.
43 actually, 43%. Okay, what happened? They are Fortune 1000 companies. They are very big and they are very smart and profitable, and they clearly proved to be very successful in their line of business. Why they have gone out of business, or they have vanished? They lost their ranking, let me say. They either left down to the ladder, they became smaller, and somebody from down became bigger than them, or they went out of business. If you go deep into this analysis, you will notice that most of the companies who went down the ladder, or the companies who went up bigger, they were believers and creative and innovators. They didn't depend on the comfort of being successful in their business, but they went out of the box and they tried to innovate and to capture new customers and to understand the market in a very dynamic and agile way. And some of those customers also, not all of them, some of them, they went out of business. What makes a Fortune 1000 company go out of business? Static. They became static. So that is a big lesson for all organizations today, that if you are very successful in your line of business and you have been profitable and you have been there in business for many years, it doesn't mean that you can continue like this forever. Or it doesn't mean that you are so clever or so knowing. That's why you are successful. Today, we are against a new economy, which is called digital economy, that has its own imperatives, its own challenges, its own opportunities. The millennials today, the people who were born, and today we are in the 2020, and so many people were born after the 1995, which is the age where the internet became mainstream. So those people, when they were born and when they become aware, when they became aware, they saw the internet and they saw the social media and they saw the mobile and they saw all the things that we use today. For them, this is not an innovation. This is how it is. This is how life it is. So their expectations, those people, which we call them the millennials, those people are having a much higher expectation moving forward. And they are the people who will define for us how the future will look. So we have, in any business, in any traditional business, we have to care about and consider about the new customer who is very much aware, very much connected. He's very much, he has the tools in his hands to judge. Look at online shopping today compared to classical shopping. Look at many food ordering and choose selection and many other things. So any organization, in a short conclusion, many organizations need to change the way they look at their business and be open for suggestions, whether they are internal suggestions from their own technology departments or from external consultants, in order to preserve and maintain and mitigate the risks of being disrupted in this challenging economy.
Okay, we have one question in the chat that's connected to what we've been discussing. Mm-hmm. So the question is that, what is your thought on the new step in loyalty systems that may become like a main point of interaction between business and clients, rather than just a complementary app with bonuses? What would you say? So I would kind of rephrase the question that we have many applications, and I used to be a mobile developer in 2009, so I've been building this, and I know. And you had a business, and then you had an app, and it was like kind of, you have some benefits in here, but the business still goes through the main channel, like physical or phone calls, etc. And then you have a nice app. And then companies that actually switched off the traditional channel, like Uber again, or Airbnb, you cannot call and ask for an Uber or stop it. You need to have an app. They shown, even though it was like counterintuitive, how come that having two channels should be actually more effective than having just one. But it has happened that having just one channel, but very effective, is better. So what do you think?
So as I said, maybe at the beginning of the discussion, coming up with a new business model is a risky task. Maybe that is also one of the main reasons why leadership in organizations are not taking serious actions because they are not sure of how well it goes. Because it may have negative impact on the organizations. It's not only you may lose the investment you do in the digital initiative, but also you may negatively impact the classical business. I gave the example of brand power, because any organization has been in business for many years, they use their name. So that name, if you confuse your customer, that will have a different message. That's why I call for a well studied and education and a disciplined approach when taking this subject, so that you don't confuse your customers and you lose customer loyalty. I'm not sure if I understood the question well and I answered you well, but I would like to add also, again, to this, similar to this point, is that once you are in the digital channel, you said 2 channels, traditional and digital, and when they stopped so with 1 channel, they were better effective than 2 channels. This is confusing your customer, that's why. So if you are talking about making the same process in a better way, that's not a channel, that's not a new process. That's okay, that's enhancement. And this is accepted by the customer, and it will not confuse the customer. But if you are trying to make a new model, for example, in digital banks, they don't use checks. And people are used to sign checks, and how to issue a kind of digital check or transfer of value transfer from one place to another. So if you don't know how to do it, then you can spoil it. So that's why you need the assistance. Organizations, they need to take the assistance of people who have done this before. Now, since this is relatively new, you may not have a lot of consulting houses who can help enterprise customers to look at it. That's why an in-house knowledge is important, is equally important to an external knowledge. So they have to be a team. They have to create a team between external consulting houses and internal teams. Did I answer you the question?
Yeah, to some extent. I also would like to ask you about what would you say is necessary for companies, like this step number 1. So besides the leadership, etc. So which literature they should read? Like my personal experience was the Innovator's Dilemma, the book that quite briefly and deep describes the problem, using examples. And maybe what kind of sources would you like to?
I think in order to convince the leadership, there is no one source of information. It's a collective thought and collective sources of knowledge. There should be an appetite, first of all, and there should be a passion and humbleness and openness to explore this digital economy. So initially, this you cannot learn it. You have to have it. That's why you are called a leader. Leader, it means there's a follower. So he leads. So if somebody is not taking action and he's in a leader position, then he has some lack of leadership in this case. There is a negative aspect of this actually, which is most of the leadership teams, they are in the age of 50 plus, okay, many of them. And those people are not ready in their age to disrupt or to create a new major or radical changes to the way they do business. So they just work on short term or mid term, and as long as the business is going on, they would not take the action. So I would say that in order to let those people, in addition to leadership and humbleness and education, there are courses taught online even, and there's a personal reading. The internet is full of information, but they need to find good sources of information and books. But again, they have to be able to articulate and relate what they read to their own business in their own country, in their own economy, within the politics of their, for example, let's talk about fintech, and you are a professional and you are very, this is a core knowledge to you. In fintech, in order to do a fintech project or idea or use case, you need a jurisdiction that governs the fintech operation. Today, many countries are trying to, there's a race after who could be a more compelling jurisdiction. Why is this race? Because every country, say, for example, in the financial sector, Switzerland, Dubai, I think Kenya are trying, even Singapore. So everybody is trying to create a footprint in the jurisdiction footprint. Why? Because it gives branding to the country, and the rules that govern that type of digital operation, fintech operation, are important, and they have to be compelling, and they have to be tempting for the investors and users alike. So people will choose which jurisdiction based on how it suits their geography probably, or their political alliance, or their expectation from the service. So it's important to understand your current market, to try to read a little bit of insight ahead of you, to look what's going on in the technology and in the other similar businesses in your industry, and try to collect those feedback and read and send your people. Like if I'm talking to a CEO, I tell him, send your people, invest in knowledge, send your people for trainings. You never know. You might waste all this money, and you may use it for one person will get you one idea that could save you your life. So people shouldn't be stingy on investing in training and education. They can have either in-house or online or offline or whatever the way. Knowledge is available, but you need to go and get it. And you need to be very fair inside you. You don't have to be biased when you read the data. You don't have to, to hate it when you read it. You have to accept it. You have to embrace. You have to embrace that knowledge.
This is a new way of thinking. I mean, something what you've said relates me to the to TL organization book from Frederic Laloux. So these organizations kind of embrace personal gifts of every person, and capabilities, and give them freedom to learn, to act, and to develop new things. So yeah, indeed, I would agree with you. I recollected the question they had before. We have limited time. Let's try to keep it short. I have now 2 questions last. So my initial question was, do you think that VR and artificial augmented reality will again change the concept of digital transformation?
It supports. It will not change the concept of digital. It will support the digital. It will boost the digital transformation concept. Yes, of course. Today, they don't even call it augmented reality. They call it mixed reality. Mm-hmm. Okay, so which is, if you like, virtual reality with augmented reality with more than one reality into one. So it's a mixed reality technology. This will have a lot of implementations in different areas, and those areas could scale also to further areas, like wayfinding. Okay, wayfinding, to find where is something, is now very much influenced with virtual reality or augmented reality. I have seen a presentation, live presentation last summer when I was in the US about a person who speaks English, and he has very valuable information that he needs to spread across the world. And that knowledge was not possible. He cannot exist in the whole world, and he cannot be in different languages, right? So mixed reality solutions was able to help make an avatar of this person of the same shape, but speaking the language of the country live. So when I'm presenting in the US, somebody is seeing me and hearing me in Japanese in Japan, for example. Mm-hmm. Okay, So that is something that I think will develop. It's still not yet mainstream till now, but there is a lot of potential that can be invested in the future.
Yeah, and indeed, the new collaboration techniques, like now we use Zoom, it's kind of very limited information still. And if we will be able to see like full avatars of ourselves and see them like motion, and that would be much better. Yeah, smell each other.
One more point I want to help even the audience to understand the role, we didn't talk about it, the role of the SMEs and the incubation, the technology incubation in the world. Hello? I think your screen is frozen.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't see you.
Yeah, Pavel, are you with us?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so there's an important role that will boost what we were talking about a while ago, that will boost the adoption of digital transformation is the technology incubation centers or business incubation centers. Okay, so for example, Qatar, they have a lot of business incubation centers that encourages innovators to come up with bright ideas and build a business case and present it after validation to a committee who can guarantee investors who can help them take it further to the real life. So those will also boost because they will come up with bright ideas, really good. I've seen, I was a jury in one of the committees, and I've seen a lot of bright ideas that are really creative from people who are 20, 23, 24 years old. So this is also an important aspect to focus on when we want to help the adoption of digital transformation moving forward. You had another question.
Yeah, my other question was kind of like short and maybe biased or whatever. Do you think that some culture or some nation has the mentality that is better, like it's more inclined to innovation? And you, as I understood, you often travel to the US and you like kind of gain knowledge there. Just if you can comment, because there are societies that are more like hierarchical, where people obey orders of others, they get used to it, and other societies that like the free discussion and even disagreement is like even encouraged.
No, actually, that has nothing. Geography is not having a big factor in limiting the digital transportation adoption. Knowledge is available to everybody today. So anybody can find the knowledge. Maybe some people find it easier than other people, but it's available. Now, one of the advantages of digital transformation is the inclusion, the power of inclusion, which will allow people who are not having access to technology and medicine and education, for example, maybe in some countries, not all countries, they have access the way we have maybe to data. So I think now, as I understood, the United Nations are coming up with a rule that internet and mobile, internet or data access, data service and mobile will become a necessity like food and water to any human, which means any human who is anywhere in the world who has got access to data, he will have access to education and knowledge equally like any other person anywhere else. So I don't think, okay, there are countries who are more liberal in terms of sharing the information or liberalization of the information or democratization of information, but that will not limit people from innovating. Innovation is a human aspect, as I started my presentation, that will continue to be under the ownership of the humans. And we as humans should be very proud that we own that creative characteristic, which will keep us sustained for a better future.
Okay. Abdul, we already have taken more time than we're supposed to do, but
Yes,
that
yes.
was interesting for me. And the approach is the mindset is the most important, obviously, thing in this,
Thank you.
because otherwise you can give advices like every day to a company, and if they don't learn themselves, it's kind of just a waste of time.
Yes.
So
This is what
thank you.
differentiate people. This is exactly the value that will differentiate
Mm.
organizations. It's the way and the ability to look outside the box.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
I
you.
know
And
it's
thank you again,
precious.
all the people who are attending. I hope you enjoyed this discussion and you benefited from it. And I'm also, my contact is with you, I think, on the call. So feel free to interact anytime you want for any initiative, any idea. I will try as much as possible to help you out to expand the adoption and the spread of this opportunity. I see it more than a challenge.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank you
good
very
day.
much. You too,
Bye.
everybody. Bye bye.